The Guanajuato Mummies are a collection of naturally mummified corpses buried during a cholera outbreak in Guanajuato, Mexico, around 1833. The disinterment of the human remains appears to have taken place between 1870 and 1958. At that time, a local tax was in effect that mandated payment of a charge for perpetual burial. Some of the bodies for which the fee was not paid were disinterred, while others, apparently the best-looking ones, were reportedly kept in a neighboring structure. Though scientific examinations eventually confirmed that some bodies had at least partially been embalmed, Guanajuato's climate can create conditions that can result in a sort of natural mummification. By the turn of the century, tourists were drawn to the mummies. Workers at the cemetery started charging visitors a few pesos to access the structure housing the bones and mummies. In 1969, this location was transformed into a museum, El Museo de las Momias, the Museum of the Mummies. Of the 111 mummies in the collection, 59 were on display as of 2007. When a law was passed locally requiring families to pay a burial tax to assure a loved one's permanent burial, the mummies started to be unearthed from a Guanajuato cemetery. The body was taken away if the tax wasn't paid. The bodies were naturally mummified, kept in an above-ground structure, and visitors started paying to view them in the late 1800s. In 1958, the legislation requiring the funeral tax was repealed. Due to the demands of the epidemic, more cemeteries had to be opened in San Cayetano and Cañada de Marfil. Many of the bodies were buried immediately to control the spread of the disease. It is thought that in some cases, the dying may have been buried alive by accident, resulting in horrific facial expressions. However, perceived facial expressions are most often the result of post-mortem processes. Ignacia Aguilar was one of the mummies that was buried alive. She had a peculiar illness that frequently caused her heart to seem to stop. Her heart seemed to stop during one of these episodes for more than a day. Her kin opted to bury her because they believed she had passed away. When her body was removed from the grave, it was discovered that she was lying on her stomach, biting her arm, and had a large amount of blood in her mouth. In 1865, the first mummy was displayed. It was Dr. Remigio Leroy's dead body. The museum, which is situated above the location where the mummies were first discovered, houses at least 108 dead people. The show contains a large number of mummies of various sizes. A fetus from a pregnant lady who died of cholera is the smallest mummy in the world and is housed in the museum. The garments that some of the mummies were buried in can still be seen on some of the mummies. The mummies are a notable part of Mexican popular culture, echoing the national holiday the Day of the Dead, El Día de los Muertos. A B-movie titled Santo vs. the Mummies of Guanajuato, 1970, pitted the well-known Mexican professional wrestler Santo and several others against reanimated mummies. Upon visiting the tombs of Guanajuato with his friend Grant Beach, author Ray Bradbury created the short novella The Next in Line as a reflection of the experience. The following is what Ray Bradbury said about this story in the introduction to the Stories of Ray Bradbury. The incident so wounded and horrified me, I could hardly wait to escape Mexico. I had nightmares of passing away and having to hang around those propped up and wired up corpses in the corridors of the dead. I immediately wrote The Next in Line to get rid of my fear. One of the few occasions when a situation produced outcomes practically immediately. To conjure a morbid and creepy atmospheric opening sequence to his film Nosferatu the Vampire, 1979, German director Werner Herzog used footage he had taken of several of the mummies.